Part 70. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 692. The giant air blast bomb filled with level 8 alchemical power, the alchemical ladder aluminum explosive inside exploded instantly. This is a level 8 alchemical weapon made by Stein, the commander-in-chief of the Constitutional Army. Stein completed the last step, injecting alchemical power into the bomb to enhance the killing range and killing ability. If the alchemical bullet is the pinnacle of the alchemist's metal refining technology, the giant air blast bomb is the pinnacle of the alchemist's explosive technology. At the first moment of the explosion, more than 10,000 kilograms of alchemical ladder aluminum explosives in the air blast bomb exploded, and the area within a diameter of 500 meters was a mixture of explosives and air. The ladder aluminum explosives exploded, and a 500-meter diameter hot high-temperature fireball appeared in the center of the explosion. The temperature of the fireball exceeded 3000 degrees Celsius, which is almost the same as the temperature on the surface of a star. The core explosion area with a diameter of 500 meters completely wrapped the 3 ships of the Church of the Insect Nest, and the 3 ships were directly engulfed by the core alchemical fireball. None of the priests on the 3 ships, whether they were level 8 cardinals or lower level priests, could escape. The alchemical reinforcement array disappeared before it could be activated, and the metal deck was as fragile as paper. The cabins of the Hive Church ships were not filled with weapons or cargo, but with egg chambers. The walls and ceilings of each cabin were filled with densely packed eggs. Each cabin contained a type of egg, which was carefully selected by the Hive Church to create insect plagues. Unfortunately, these little cuties turned into dust before they could hatch. The Hive Church participating in the expedition was instantly destroyed, and the evil god cult's insect plague plan was ruined. All this happened so quickly, from the giant air blast appearing at Montara's forehead to the core fireball with a diameter of 500 meters engulfing the 3 ships of the Hive fleet. It only took 1/10,000th of a second, and the Hive Cardinal Priest Montara had no time to react at all. In addition to the terrifying core explosion area, the giant air blast can also provide terrifying secondary damage. This blazing fireball expanded outward at a speed of more than 3,000 meters per second, forming a terrible shockwave that vaporized everything within a radius of 1.5 kilometers within 5 seconds. 500 meters of core explosion area, 1.5 kilometers of effective killing area. The giant air blast bomb is worthy of being the pearl of the weapons industry in West Elba. The ships closest to the Hive Church are the ships of the Oblivion Church and the Abstinence Church. The 8th level Abstinence Cardinal Priest, Bridget's artifact automatically appeared, the Harp of Silence, a harp as tall as a person, standing beside her. The sound of the harp sounded, and an absolutely silent area appeared beside Bridget. The air waves generated by the explosion solidified in front of her. Bridget could even see the high temperature and heat that were enough to distort light. The sound of the artifact's harp and the alchemical power in the air waves confronted each other, causing the strings of the artifact to vibrate violently. The absolute silence was only about 3 meters, which could save her life, but it could not save the 3 ships of the Abstinence Church, which were already few in number, nor could it save the priests under her. Except for Cardinal Priest Bridget, all the priests instantly changed from cold ice beauties to gaseous proteins and fats, and even their bones disappeared. The number of abstinence priests was so small that they had to be trained from 10-year-old virgins and undergo a long period of Puritan-style teaching before they could slowly grow into qualified abstinence priests. All these abstinence priests died in the level 8 giant air blast bomb. Bridget's face could no longer maintain a calm and cold look, and she shouted heartbreakingly in the sound of the piano, "No!" The abstinence priests died in large numbers, and the evil god abstinence would definitely bring down divine punishment. The obliteration cardinal priest was farther away, but the ending was no different. The obliteration cardinal priest Morales only activated the artifact at the last moment to save himself from death. He opened his mouth, and the high-temperature air waves facing him were swallowed into his stomach. His throat seemed to be a bottomless pit, filled with countless hot and violent air waves. This was the gift of the evil god Annihilation. Morales' throat turned into the giant mouth of the ancient demon god Fenrir, which could swallow everything. Before he swallowed the high-temperature air waves, the 5 ships of the Annihilation Church had turned into ashes. His ship was too close to the ship of the Hive Church, far from exceeding the 1.5-kilometer explosion range of the air blast bomb. What is a strategic level weapon? This is the strategic level weapon of the Sierra Constitution Army, the mother of bombs that can change the battlefield situation. A level 8 giant air blast bomb, ignoring all the enemy's defenses, directly destroys the naval forces of the 3 churches as long as it hits. These 3 evil god cults all have important functions. It is only after landing that they can exert their abilities. Now all of this is destroyed. Outside the explosion range, the violent air waves pushed other ships back, and the ships of the evil god navy tilted one by one, and the 2 ships that were close even collided with each other. The fireball produced by the explosion caused other priests to go blind and have tinnitus, and they fell into great chaos. Even the volcano was blown back by the air wave, and the naval officers on the deck quickly grabbed the railing to prevent themselves from falling. The volcano retreated more than 50 meters before stopping. Even here was affected so much. I don't know how destructive the center of the explosion was. The explosion produced a huge mushroom cloud, which could be seen several kilometers away. On the platform of the train station, Colonel Adia looked at the mushroom cloud in the direction of the port, and his tense mind relaxed a little. The judgment of the headquarters was correct. The support of the level 8 giant air blast bomb was indeed needed here, and their running was worthwhile. On the streets of Belfort, Minister Duke first saw the flash of light from the explosion, then saw the mushroom cloud, and finally heard the roar of the explosion. His speed became slower and slower, and finally he stood there, looking at the mushroom cloud, feeling that he was saved and could breathe again. In Belfort, the police officers and militia who were organizing street fighting stopped their work and looked excitedly in the direction of the port. The huge mushroom cloud was the means of the alchemist, and only the giant bombs of the alchemist would produce such a scene. On the shore of the port, the soldiers faced the air waves and the mist and dust in their faces, and looked at the explosion on the flank of the evil god navy, and they tightened their rifles in their hands. Here it comes, the support of high-level alchemical weapons has come, which is what the soldiers need most. Behind the position of the coastal artillery, the expression on the face of the division commander Rubio relaxed instantly, the air waves blew up his military coat, and the hem of the coat fluttered in the wind. At this moment, his mood was more cheerful than the fluttering skirt. Unlike the excited Belfort, the people of the evil god cult looked at the northern flank in amazement after surviving the impact of the air wave. It disappeared, the entire flank disappeared. A giant shell destroyed 1/3 of the ships of the evil god cult navy, and even defeated the entire power of the 3 churches. All the ships of the 3 churches, as well as more than a dozen ships of the trapped church, were destroyed in the explosion. This is why the alchemists were able to seize half of the northern continent from the knights. The knights had ruled the northern continent for at least 2,000 years, and they had to give in during the Constitutional War and had to give the dominant power to the alchemists. The strategic weapons of the alchemists were too powerful, and they were also mass-produced strategic weapons. How could people not be afraid? In addition, the priests were even more afraid. Of course, they knew that the alchemists had strategic weapons. They prepared many means to prevent being hit, but these means were useless. The 8-level giant air blast bomb exploded without warning, and the priest's fear reached its peak at this moment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 693. How to destroy the confidence of the evil god religion. Mr. Rubio felt that the furnace was too good to be better than this. A large crater was first blasted out of the sea surface, and the surrounding water crashed into the center. Finally, a water column was created. The water column was tens of meters high. The water column lowered its height after rising and falling, leaving only the rolling and boiling water surface. After the explosion, the furnace appeared in the center of the explosion, with dissatisfaction written on his face, and he looked around on the sea. Sometimes it flies to the left, sometimes it flies to the right, sometimes it rises into the air and is close in the smoke, and sometimes it dives into the sea water. Obviously, anyone who is an apostle can understand that the furnace is looking for a relic. Looking for relics in front of tens of thousands of priests is something that only the furnace can do. After creating such a perfect sneak attack, the furnace didn't get the relic. Look, the furnace was worried. Soon, Rudolph discovered the relic, which was floating on the sea 2 kilometers away from the explosion. The explosion killed many priests. The priests' apostolic power would gather within seconds after death and turn into relics, so the relics would not be destroyed by the explosion. These relics were blown far away by the air waves, and were blown to a distance of 2 kilometers. Rudolph took a quick look and saw that the priests' bodies were directly vaporized. There was no place for the apostles' power to attach and could not be transformed into various relics that could reflect the priest's abilities during his lifetime. All the relics were starstone relics generated out of thin air. The same after the death of an apostle of a higher level, the power of the apostle condenses into the same relic. Rudolph saw 2 level 7 insect nest priest relics. They were both level 7 insect eggs. The texture of the insect eggs was the same as the texture of starstones. No matter what the abilities of the 2 level 7 insect nest priests were during their lifetime, the relics have now become same. Oh! This damn alchemy weapon actually has such side effects. The ones closest to the furnace are the Oblivion Cardinal Priest Morales and the Abstinence Cardinal Priest Bridget, who survived with the help of the artifact. They are facing south and north, looking at the furnace that is still busy with stiff expressions. Until now. Still don't understand what happened. Is this the power of an alchemist's level 8 alchemy weapon? None of the level 8 alchemists were present. Just sending a level 8 alchemy weapon actually destroyed 1/3 of the evil god cult's navy. The evil god cult also felt the pain of werewolves and knights at this time. Facing such exaggerated strategic weapons, any defense except top-level artifacts was like a joke. Cardinal Priest Morales of Annihilation was the first to react and took action against the furnace. He opened his mouth wide and his jaw seemed to be dislocated. A Fenrir vortex appeared in the mouth and he was about to suck the furnace into the endless abyss. To his surprise, however, just as he had no idea when the furnace appeared, he also failed to know how it disappeared. The seawater lost its weight and turned into a cone-shaped tornado vortex, rushing into Morales's mouth. The water vapor and gunpowder smoke that had not yet dissipated in the air also formed a tornado and entered Morales's mouth. But there is no melting pot here, and the melting pot seems not to exist in this world. When Morales discovered the furnace again, the furnace had appeared behind him, next to the relic, and picked up the first level 7 insect nest priest relic. Completely ignoring, the furnace didn't even look at Morales. Priests from the southern continent rarely see wizards from the north, so Morales did not recognize Rodolfo's ability at the first time. He quickly launched a second attack on the furnace, only to see the furnace disappear again. Morales hurriedly searched for the furnace on the sea. Behind you, ascetic Cardinal Priest Bridget also came nearby. She reminded Morales and added, "It will appear when the furnace is picking up the relics." Picking up the second relic of the level 7 High Priest, Rudolph looked at the ice beauty Bridget. He did not expect that this woman was so smart, and this revealed her absolutely hidden shortcomings. Rudolph is not affected by anything in a state of absolute concealment, and is unknowable and unobservable, but he cannot affect other people or things. If you want to pick up the relics, you have to show up, which exposes a flaw. Morales quickly turned his head and attacked Rudolph again. Rudolph once again used absolute stealth to dodge. Fenrir's vortex was very powerful. Apart from absolute stealth, Rudolph had no means of direct confrontation. When the two cardinal priests discovered the furnace again, it had already appeared on the sea farther away. He was picking up a relic of a level 7 ascetic priest, a frosty woman's mask. This mask was very heavy and made of starstone. Morales believed that the furnace's behavior was a naked provocation. He opened his mouth again, but this time he lowered his head toward the sea instead of toward the furnace. Fenrir's vortex appears again, and this time Morales' target is the water below, all the relics floating on the sea. A large whirlpool suddenly appeared on the sea, a whirlpool several kilometers in diameter. Like a dragon sucking water, a waterspout appeared, connected to the sea on one side and Morales's mouth on the other. In a very short period of time, everyone could not help but sway in the direction of Morales. A large number of the sea water flowed towards Morales and was swallowed by Morales. The relics on the sea also disappeared into Morales' mouth with the sea water. Not sure if it was an illusion, but the soldiers on the shore felt that the sea level had dropped a few points, and was then filled by sea water from other places. Rudolph watched with regret as the remaining relics entered Morales's mouth. He had already obtained 3 level 7 relics, so there was no need to show up. If he showed up, he might be captured and swallowed by the vortex. There was also an artifact, the Harp of Silence, next to him. Rudolph was afraid that he would be immobilized by that artifact and unable to move. He carefully searched for the level 8 High Priest's relics in the vortex, but he never saw the shadow of the level 8 High Priest's relics. Could it be that the level 8 giant air blast bomb failed to kill the level 8 High Priest's relics? The level 8 giant air blast bomb exploded against the cardinal priest's nose. I don't know if the cardinal priest of the hive is dead. If she is dead, have her relics been taken away by you in the furnace, and if she is not dead, where did they go? On the evil god ship closest to the explosion, a trapped priest asked the captain at the bow, "Captain, is the cardinal high priest dead?" The captain was a level 6 trapped priest. He knew more, and replied, "No, absolutely not. The cardinal high priest has a special ability. She will leave an egg in the mother nest of the harvest goddess. After the death of the cardinal priest, the egg will be rehatched in the egg, and the memory and body will be restored. This is the reward given to the cardinal priest by the harvest goddess." Harvest mother nest? Isn't that the temple of the harvest church? Does it mean that the cardinal high priest was resurrected in the temple of the harvest parish in the southern continent? Yes. I see. The captain felt that the last sentence sounded strange. After turning around, the captain was horrified to find that the wizard who had just picked up relics on the sea was standing next to him. At this moment, the retreat whistle sounded on the flagship of the trapped church. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 694. The sharp whistle echoed on the sea, and the naval ships of the evil god cult turned around one after another. The trapped priest of level 6 also wanted to turn around, but he did not give the order because the furnace was next to him. The gunshot rang out, and a bullet hole appeared on the head of the trapped priest of level 6. The furnace proved with his actions that he would not allow the ship to evacuate. It was too close. If it could leave, how would Rudolph survive in front of the evil god cult in the future? Dense starlight water snakes fell from Rudolph's sleeves, rushing towards other priests at a speed as fast as a blue line, poisoning them one by one. On the coastal artillery position, the staff officer asked, "Lieutenant General, are we going to let the evil god cult navy leave like this?" Division Commander Rubio sighed. Whether to let the evil god cult navy leave did not depend on him or the furnace, but on the number of level 8 giant air blast bombs. If the furnace is given enough level 8 alchemical air blast bombs, no, even if it is given 3 more giant air blast bombs, the furnace will not let the evil god cult's ships leave. The furnace has proved that he has the ability to silently detonate giant air blast bombs in front of the Cardinal Priest, which is more accurate and efficient than the level 8 artillery specially built by the alchemist. According to the previous communication with the military only sent 2 giant air blast bombs to the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The furnace did not continue to take action because the furnace only had the last giant air blast bomb left. This air blast bomb is the hope of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Without this air blast bomb, the evil god cult will attack the Eagle's Beak Peninsula unscrupulously. The trapped ship where Rudolph was did not move. He watched other ships leave on the ship without chasing. Even if one cardinal priest was beaten back to the hinterland of the southern continent, there were still 5 cardinal priests on the sea, and there might be fraudulent cardinal priests around. Rudolph was not prepared to take risks. It was good that the evil god cult retreated. He could discuss the long term with the Alchemy Council. His consciousness came to the star map in his mind, looking at the improvement brought by the level 7 relics. Among the 3 level 7 relics, there were 2 relics of the high priests and 1 relic of the abstinence priest, lighting up 2 dim stars. Level 7 insect eggs. This star-stone texture insect egg hit the Virgo Delta star like a meteor, and the progress of Virgo came to 4/11. 3 suspended stars fell from the Virgo Delta star, which was the reward given to Rudolph by the star map. Level 7 egg-born offspring, Level 7 evil insects, Level 7 North Sky Sagittarius secret style. Level 7 evil insects are combat insects cultivated by the high priests, with strong combat power and large numbers. What is this level 7 egg-born offspring? Rudolph suddenly remembered a rumor. It is said that the level 7 insect nest priest can reproduce asexually, and give birth to a child who is exactly the same as himself. Exactly the same, both in appearance and personality, can be used as a substitute to attract the attention of the enemy. Low-level insect nest priests can use metamorphosis pupae to transform into another person. This high-level insect nest priest is also very wild. I gave birth to myself. Rudolph felt a chill. Egg-born offspring? Rudolph will never need such a thing in his life. He chose the level 7 North Sky Sagittarius secret formula without hesitation. North Sky Sagittarius secret formula. Astrological map Sky Arrow hexagram. Main relics level 7 Druid relics or level 7 Wind Wizard relics. Secondary relics level 7 Insect Nest Priest relics, level 7 White Demon Priest relics or level 7 Alchemist relics. Ritual location Sky Arrow direct shot area, Vulture Mountains. A level 7 Wind Wizard relic is needed. It seems that Sagittarius is a very aggressive level 7 constellation. Rudolph's normal attack methods are somewhat scarce. He has no convenient means to deal with level 7 apostles or lower level apostles. He can't just use the 2 forbidden techniques of shooting fingers and pulverizing the world. He now mainly relies on the level 7 poisoned bullets in the revolver, which is somewhat thin. He doesn't look like a wizard, but more like an alchemist. The level 7 Worm Nest Priest relic should guarantee the number of sky arrows. The Worm Nest relic means that there will be overwhelming sky arrows flying out. The last relic, the White Demon Priest relic and the Alchemist relic, should guarantee the shooting speed of the sky arrows. Rudolph already has the level 7 Alchemist relic. When he killed the level 7 Fraud Priest Milo, he left 2 level 7 relics, one of which was the Alchemist relic that was finally condensed by his alchemical power. The level 7 Alchemist relics are somewhat precious, mainly because it is not easy to attack the Alchemist recently. In the future, we can focus on taking care of the White Demon Priest and see if we can get a White Demon Priest relic. I don't know how his old friend, the level 7 White Demon Priest Jacob, is doing recently. I was in a hurry this time and didn't notice whether there was Jacob in the White Demon Church's fleet. Last year, Jacob chased him all night and forced Rudolph to resurrect 20 times. I haven't seen him for a long time. I miss him a little. I don't know if he misses Rudolph. This constellation is very suitable for Rudolph and can make up for Rudolph's shortcomings in conventional means. The relic of the level 7 hive god priest is very practical. Rudolph looked at the second relic, the level 7 abstinence priest relic. This is also a very rare relic. If it weren't for the gathering of the evil god called Fleet, Rudolph would hardly meet the level 7 abstinence priest. The level 7 cold mask flew to the Virgo star field and hit the Virgo Epsilon star. The progress of Virgo has reached 5/11. 3 floating stars fell from the Virgo Epsilon star, which was Rudolph's second reward today. Level 7 blush, level 7 cold mask, level 7 northern coma Berenice secret. Rudolph felt that his will was no longer firm. He ignored the magic weapons and secret techniques behind him and stared at the level 7 flushing technique in the first suspended star. All serious people should choose the secret method, and again choose a witchcraft. This flushing technique is not a serious witchcraft at first glance. But why is this witchcraft so attractive? Why does Rudolph feel itchy? What kind of illicit ability is flushing? Do abstinent priests usually abstain from sex? When was this flush used? Could it be that the ascetic priest's usual abstinence is just a facade, in order to be completely debauched in the end? Can this witchcraft turn a fierce woman into a silver snake? To bring a flush to the face of the purest woman? Rudolph gritted his teeth and stared at the floating stars that represented the flushing technique. Rudolph, swear. I will definitely obtain this witchcraft in the future. He endured the heartache and chose the last option, the back-off position. North Tianhofa seat secret style. Astrology chart, column hexagram. Main relic, level 7 werewolf relic. Sub-relics, level 7 insect high priest relics, level 7 ascetic priest relics or level 7 silver snake relics. Ceremony location, the area directly under Coma, on the rocks of the Bernicki Sea. What surprised Rudolph was that he had already gathered the 3 relics needed for this northern constellation. Werewolf relics, insect high priest relics, ascetic priest relics, isn't this one step in the making? Bernicki Sea, this secret location is just on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, not far from here, in the south of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, in the direction of Dani City. Coma is considered to be the tail of Leo and is very close to the zodiac constellation Leo. Although it is a northern constellation, it can be completed on the northern shore of the Salago Sea. Yes, he will soon accommodate the characteristics of the second northern constellation. However, why do I still feel that there is a missing piece in my heart? What kind of witchcraft is flushing technique? I feel so distressed. I feel that I have obtained the secret formula, but I have lost my happiness. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 695. On the volcano, Rudolph's figure suddenly appeared, startling others around him. Not to mention other people, Cooper's cloak trembled. Rudolph, can you say hello from a few meters away and politely ask can I come over, and then show up again? Don't you think it's rude? It doesn't matter whether you are polite or not, Cooper. Where are our people? Why are there people from the Navy on the ship? Check quickly to see if our precious volcano has been damaged by the evil cult. I will find a gentle way next time, just kill the priests and don't destroy the flagships. It's a pity that the 3 flagships just now were all more powerful ships than the volcano, and they were destroyed by giant air blast bombs. Listening to the casual conversation between the Forge and the Green Skull, Brigadier Brooke on the side captured some key information. He had not known the real names of the Forge and the Green Skull before. It turned out that one of them was named Rudolph and the other was named Cooper. Brooke stood aside and didn't know what to say. He was not good at words, and finally squeezed out a dry sentence. Hello, Mr. Furness, thank you for saving Belfour City. Rudolph glanced at his epaulets and said, Major General, please contact your Commander-in-Chief and Duke, the director of the trial hall, and tell them that I have something to ask them. The evil cult ships that were all over the sea disappeared, leaving only the last lonely ship. I don't know why it didn't leave. After the Constitutional Army ship approached, it was discovered that the priests on the ship had been poisoned and died. Obviously, this it is the means of the melting pot. The volcano returned, along with the other ships, to cheers from the soldiers on shore. The way these dozen ships charged against hundreds of Constitutional Force Navy ships demonstrated their fearlessness and deserved the admiration of others. Rudolph was the first to walk down the gangway of the volcano. As he walked, he said to Cooper behind him, "Look, it's a lot more troublesome to walk openly. There are so many people on the trestle shouting at me. I am such a person, there's some social fear." Cooper also wanted to throw away his cloak and leave here quietly, but he had just taught Rudolph and he couldn't regret it now. "You should be happy. Which wizard is treated like you? You see, not only are they not afraid of you, they also start to worship you." Amidst the cheers of the soldiers, Rudolph met the commander-in-chief here. "Hello, Mr. Furness, I am the division commander of the Garrison Constitutional Army, Lieutenant General Rubio." Behind Rubio stood Rudolph's old acquaintance, Duke, the director of the trial hall of the Eagle Beak province. Rudolph said, "Lieutenant General Rubio, nice to meet you. Let's find a place to talk as soon as possible. There are still many things to be finalized." In the conference room of the Port Management Office, several parties gathered together for the most important post-war meeting. Here at Volcano Trading Company, Rudolph, Yvonne, and Cooper sit on one side of the long table. Sitting on the other side of the long table were Director Duke, Major General Brooke, Colonel Aditya, and two staff officers. The main seat is Lieutenant General Rubio, who is the Supreme Commander of the Constitutional Army. Rudolph was the first to speak. "I think there is no need to waste time. Let me talk about some needs to ensure Belfour's safety." The others paid the highest attention and listened to the attitude of the furnace. "The number of level 8 alchemy giant airburst bombs is too small. Colonel Aditya only has the last one left. I hope you can get it through your own channels, whether it is through the Parliament, the Ministry of Justice, or the military department of the Constitutional Army. More alchemical airbursts. Facing the evil god cult, other weapons are of little use. Only airburst bombs can change the battlefield trend. The evil god sect suffered a loss this time. I think they will use stronger and more targeted methods next time and will not let me achieve such perfect results so easily. According to the strength of the evil god cult, at least 3 level 8 alchemical airburst bombs need to be prepared for each battle. 2 sonic booms, 1 for deterrence, this is the most perfect." Before anyone else could speak, Colonel Aditya was the first to express the difficulty. "Mr. Furness, it is too difficult to manufacture level 8 alchemical air blast bombs. Each air blast bomb requires half a province's explosive production. Ordinary alchemical weapons consume gunpowder. The raw materials of explosives, such as nitrate and aluminum, are still important to other industrial products. Raw materials, and finally Commander-in-Chief Stein had to complete the final step himself, infusing the aluminum explosive with alchemical power. The entire West Elba can only produce 20 level 8 giant airburst bombs each year. Giant airburst bombs have a shelf life. After the shelf life, the alchemical power inside will collapse and the detonation conditions will not be met. We need to retain enough level 8 airburst bombs on the Eastern Front battlefield to maintain a deterrent to the cavalry regiments. We also have to use airburst bombs to eliminate a large number of werewolves on the Western Front battlefield. There are at least 12 level 8 werewolves in the Luberon Mountains. The pressure is too much." Rudolph shook his head. "I understand the truth. I can only tell you that every battle involves 3 giant airburst bombs, otherwise we will be defeated. Others understand that the furnace's judgment is very accurate, and so many airburst bombs must be used in every battle with the evil cult. They also knew that what Colonel Aditya said was true. The weapons arsenal of the Constitutional Army could not support a war on 3 fronts. A war on 2 fronts was the limit of the Constitutional Army. Rudolph said, "You have to think of a way, you must find a way. If you want to keep the Eagle Crane Peninsula and deal with 7 level 8 cardinal priests, this is the minimum amount of ammunition. With my help, I can ensure that every level 8 airburst bomb is not a waste. If you use your alchemy cannon, your ammunition capacity must be at least doubled. If 2 of the level 8 airburst bombs fired by the artillery or the giant airburst bomb dropped by the airship can hit a level 8 cardinal priest once, you are considered powerful." The alchemists all lowered their heads, not knowing what to say. They know what they should do, but conditions don't allow it. Division Commander Rubio did not want to make the atmosphere so solemn. He said, "I will try again and suggest that the military department continue to apply for assistance from the Carolingian and Cantal parliaments." Rudolph nodded, "Yes, especially the United States of Cantal. If you cooperate with me, you can only take out 1 level 8 alchemy bullet at a time. If Cantal cooperates with me, you can get 2 at a time. They are richer than you." He looked at Director Duke again. "Director Duke, whether it is my salary, or helping me is helping your Eagle Beak province, I hope you can help me get a level 7 druid relic. I heard that druids who die of old age will leave behind relics. These relics are legal and legal. I am in urgent need of druid relics." Duke looked very ugly, his features wrinkled together, and he wanted to say something. Waving his hand to indicate that he had not finished speaking, Rudolph continued, "Director Duke, don't refuse in a hurry. If it is a level 7 priest's relic, I can hunt it myself. I can also hunt for a level 7 druid relic. This is the relic I need most now, but if I attack the druid now, it will lead to the consequences. It's unnecessary diplomatic trouble. You should have a good relationship with the druid, at least you are an ally. Director Duke, give me a deadline. If you don't get me a level 7 druid relic before that deadline, I have to say I'm sorry, I'm going to take action against the God's chosen apostle druid." The forge helped Belfour City today, but what he said just now made these alchemists understand that the forge is still the same bloody and cruel wizard. He said that asking the trial hall to obtain the relics of a level 7 druid was a courtesy first and a weapon later. Depending on what the furnace means, if the judgment hall can't do it, then the furnace will have to be snatched. "I'll try my best, Mr. Furnace." Duke didn't dare to agree. It was a relic of a level 7 druid, so how could he get it so easily? Rudolph stood up. "Time is running out. The evil god cult is here with the goal of destroying the Eagle Beak Peninsula. I will complete a secret formula first. Please collect intelligence, prepare ammunition, and prepare relics for me as soon as possible." Commander Rubio wanted to say something else, but he only saw people from the Furnace and Volcano Trading Company leaving. The sense of urgency brought by the furnace made the alchemists breathless. If the furnaces are all in such a hurry, it proves that the situation is more serious than they seem. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 696. The secret location of Coma Berenices is located on the reefs of the Berenice Sea. Mackenzie found a sea chart for Rudolph. He pointed to the southernmost tip of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula is shaped like a hook at the end. This hook is the origin of the name of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The sea area surrounded by the hook is the Berenice Sea you mentioned, Captain. The largest city near the Berenice Sea is Dani City. Captain, if you want to find the most famous reef in the Berenice Sea, you can go to Dani City to ask. Dani City, Rudolph remembered the city. This is the hometown of Xuanhuan from the Black Gold Institute. He first came to the Eagle's Beak Peninsula from Dani City. Okay, I'll leave now. You all should be careful in the near future. Watching Captain Furnace leave, Mackenzie sighed in his heart. How careful can you be? There are evil god naval forces nearby. Going out alone is to die. It is impossible to move the ship now. It is better to stay in Belfort port, which is safer. Rudolph went to Danny alone, flying very fast with bat wings, and could reach the Berenice Sea in a few hours. Just as the evil god navy besieged Belfort port, a battle broke out outside the small port of Danny. The battle in Danny was even 2 hours earlier. The evil god had a stronger information transmission system, so it could control the time accurately. But there were no miracles here, no level 8 alchemical weapons, and even no fierce resistance. Danny was smaller than Fabreau. The port here was a fishing port, and not many cargo ships came here. The speaker of the Alchemy Council of the city was a level 5 alchemist. The subordinate police station, trial office, and constitutional army were not strong. After only half an hour of resistance, the main force was completely wiped out by the navy of the Oblivion Church. The Oblivion Church easily pushed the front line from the port to the city. The level 7 Oblivion priest Canute didn't care about the battle. His 2 level 6 priests would deal with the Alchemy Council here. Canute stood on the pier of the port and watched the priests transport the temple's pillars. With the main force of the evil god cult navy attracting attention in the north, the Alchemy Council could not notice what was happening in this small town. The pillars were very heavy, and the priests did not use any magic to reduce the weight of the pillars. Instead, they asked the servants and believers to carry the pillars in the most primitive way of rolling wood. Only by working hard and sweating devoutly can we express our respect for the Lord of Nothingness. 12 pillars more than 9 meters high were transported one by one to the seafood market next to the port. The seafood market had long been emptied, and all the shops were destroyed and moved away by the believers, clearing out a piece of open space. In the future, this will become the temple of the Lord of Nothingness, and the ships coming and going will see the great temple at the first time. The believers who were sent to the Eagle's Beak Peninsula before felt the call of the Lord of Nothingness and kept gathering here. They knelt on the periphery and cried bitterly because they could not carry the pillars by hand. Soon, 12 pillars were erected, and the prototype of the temple appeared. This temple is undoubtedly simple, but this is not the crux of the problem. This temple will be the first temple in the northern continent. No matter how magnificent the temple or how majestic the platform is built for the Lord of Nothingness in the future, it cannot change the status of the Lord of Nothingness as the first temple in the northern continent. Canute stood in front of the temple and said loudly to the servants kneeling on the ground, "Lambs of the Lord of Nothingness. Do you want to be favored by the Lord? Do you want to be blessed by the Lord? Go and find sacrifices for the Lord. Go and find sacrifices that can fill the entire endless abyss. Fill the endless abyss and let the endless abyss take away our troubles. Let us please the Lord of Nothingness with sacrifices, and ask the Lord of Nothingness to pay attention to the northern continent." The believers and servants heard Newt's declaration, turned around excitedly, and rushed to Danny City one after another. The power of the Danny City Council was defeated by the suppression of the Oblivion Church, and half of the city was occupied by the submerged church. The constitutional army soldiers, police officers, and witch hunters were fighting desperately with the priests of the submerged church. Behind the front, believers and servants of God rushed into the street impatiently. They smashed the doors of the residence and dragged out the people hiding in the basement. "Swan, don't you recognize me? When you smuggled in, I introduced you to work in the restaurant." A middle-aged woman who was dragged was crying heartbreakingly on the ground. She had met a believer who smuggled in before. Out of pity for him, she introduced this believer named Swan to work in her relative's restaurant. Swan was most familiar with this woman, so he knew where her home was. Now Swan is no longer the poor young man who just climbed out of the sea and shivered with cold. He is now a believer of the Lord of Nothingness, a fanatic believer who is qualified to become a servant of God by offering sacrifices to the Lord. Swan dragged the middle-aged woman's hair. He was so eager and so fast that he pulled off a lot of the middle-aged woman's hair. A lot of blood flowed from the torn scalp of the middle-aged woman, and the blood soaked the collar of the middle-aged woman. No matter how miserable the middle-aged woman cried, it could not change Xuan's determination to become a servant of God. At this time, the middle-aged woman understood what her neighbor said. No matter how pitiful these stowaways were, they were all people from the South Continent, very different from the people of Dani City, and would never integrate into Dani City and become real Dani City people. Tears of regret could not arouse Xuan's even a little bit of sympathy. The middle-aged woman saw other neighbors who were dragged out by the believers of the South Continent. They were all poor ordinary people. The stowaways from the South Continent were very familiar with this place and knew where people were hiding. The middle-aged woman was dragged by her hair, all the way to the outside of the city, to the former fish market next to the port. How cruel a person must be to do such a cruel thing. The middle-aged woman's hair was pulled out, and only a bald and bloody scalp was left. When the middle-aged woman looked up, she saw Xuan's eyes, which were a pair of eyes full of excitement and hatred, eyes like a beast, and eyes with only faith in his mind. Xuan pinched the middle-aged woman's neck, not wanting the woman's screams to pollute the temple, and continued to drag the woman to the pillar. Canute stood beside the pillar, looking at the young man with satisfaction. He brought the sacrifice so quickly. Go. Child of the Lord, go and offer sacrifice to the Lord of Nothingness. The Lord will grant you the status of a servant of God, and let you possess the power of the Lord of Nothingness. After Xuan bowed to Canute, he stepped on the lumbar spine of the middle-aged woman who wanted to crawl away. He was so excited that he almost broke the lumbar spine of the middle-aged woman. Amid the screams of the middle-aged woman, Xuan pushed the middle-aged woman to the pillar of God. At this time, in the middle of the 12 pillars, 1 meter above the ground, there was a black vortex slowly rotating. The moment she touched the black vortex, the screams of the woman in the middle disappeared instantly. She seemed to have left this world. Her figure gradually blurred and was absorbed by the vortex. From then on, there was no middle-aged woman in the world. The black vortex was very satisfied and its rotation speed was a few points faster. Xuan knelt in front of the pillar of God excitedly. He had become a servant of God. A wisp of black air separated from the black vortex and entered his body. He felt the divine power in his body. Although it was weak, it was indeed divine power. Go. Child of the Lord, continue to offer sacrifices to the Lord of Nothingness. Today you have a chance to become a level 1 priest. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 697. The believers and low-level priests who smuggled in traveled through the streets and alleys of Dani City, searching non-stop and dragging people to the pillars by the sea, offering them as sacrifices to the Lord of Nothingness. In the basement, in the closet, in the cellar, in the attic, there was no place that was safe. The once quiet seaside town of Dani City has now become a hell. The citizens here were found and dragged on the streets. If they met disobedient people, their hands and feet would be broken. The men joined the militia and died one by one at the hands of the priests of the Oblivion Church. Women and children who had no ability to resist were sacrificed, especially children. The evil god cult was very experienced and would not keep children who were full of hatred for the church. It would be difficult for these children to become believers of the Lord of Nothingness when they grow up. Canute waited with satisfaction. There were 40,000 people in Dani City. Only 20,000 sacrifices were needed to create a channel that could accommodate the power of the Lord of Nothingness, so that the Lord of Nothingness could watch here and turn these 12 pillars into the Lord's temple. Sacrifice, this is the most intoxicating thing for the priests, they will be recognized by the Lord after the sacrifice. Only the rich area is still under the control of the parliament, and the entire civilian area has been completely lost. The defense force of the rich area is stronger, and the police and witch hunters finally retreated to the rich area. The level 6 annihilation priest stood in front of the rich area and said, "The rich area is large, but the population is not large. Don't worry, you can't catch many sacrifices if you break in. First catch the people in the occupied area and complete the sacrifice as soon as possible." In less than an hour, the Annihilation Church caught 20,000 sacrifices. When the 20,000th sacrifice was pushed into the vortex, Canute raised his hand and signaled everyone behind him to keep quiet. The priests and believers were very obedient, but those who were caught still made irritating screams. The priests took out the black ring knife wheel, and the sharp blade of the knife wheel swung to cut off the late sacrifice. "Priest, please let me complete the sacrifice. I have tried very hard." "Shut up. The sacrifice ceremony has begun." The priests not only executed these ordinary people who were no longer needed, but also expelled low-level priests and servants. Among the 12 pillars, the black vortex suspended 1 meter above the ground gathered the attention of all the priests. Canute stared at the vortex with relief in his eyes. "It's done." He finally completed the sacrifice. Next, the Lord of Nothingness will look at this place and turn it into his temple. In the center of the vortex, a black light suddenly shot out, and the black light rushed straight into the sky. The sky was hit by the black light, and black ripples appeared. In an instant, with the black light as the center, circles of dark clouds emerged around, rolling outwards. A terrifying breath appeared in the sky, and a small black vortex appeared above the sky. The cantilever of this black vortex was not the black abyss mist, but 12 tentacles. The tentacles, like octopuses, slowly moved, and the shape of the tentacles came into people's vision. There were rows of suckers on the tentacles, and eyes grew in the suckers. These eyes were looking at the vortex on the ground, looking at the northern continent that was so familiar before. The tentacle vortex was getting bigger and bigger, and the 12 tentacles were getting longer and longer. In the center of the tentacle vortex was a pool of black rotten meat, and a fishy unknown liquid was falling on the rotten meat, just like the pus flowing from the corners of the vulture's mouth. As the tentacle vortex rotated faster and faster, not only was the pus falling, but the black rotten meat was also thrown out and fell to the 12 pillars below. A piece of rotten meat fell right on the top of a pillar. The servant Xuan was the first believer to send the sacrifice. He was allowed to watch the ceremony from a distance. He clearly saw a piece of scalp with hair in the rotten meat. He was so excited that he couldn't say more, and his eyes were full of tears. That was the sacrifice he sent in, that was the scalp of the middle-aged woman. It was definitely her. That was the bloody scalp after he pulled out most of his hair. Lord, I am so lucky that the sacrifice I offered to the Lord actually became a part of the Lord. The rotten meat was as soft as mud, flowing on the pillar, flowing down the pillar bit by bit. This pillar was wrapped in rotten meat, and the same was true on other pillars. The rotten meat fell and then completely wrapped the pillar. The rotten meat began to bubble like boiling. I don't know when tentacles grew in the pillars. One by one, the tentacles pushed open the rotten meat, making the pillars full of dense tentacles. Canute knelt down excitedly. He felt that the Lord of Nothingness was beside him. The tentacles that grew on the pillars rolled up the rotten meat and stuffed it into the pillars. There were many fish-like mouths on the pillars, and the teeth grew densely inside the mouths, swallowing the rotten meat bit by bit. The priests heard the wonderful chewing sound, the chewing sound of crunching. These pillars look like black basalt, but they are actually alive. After swallowing the rotten meat, the pillars have become thicker. Xuan kept staring at the bloody scalp with hair until he saw the scalp being sucked and chewed by the mouth on the pillar. His body trembled with excitement. A few minutes later, the pillars were clean and all the rotten meat was sucked and chewed clean. Black mist began to emerge from the pillars. It was the mist from the abyss. The abyss has no bottom. Anyone who falls into the abyss cannot reach the bottom of the abyss. After the black mist appeared, it rushed to the surrounding priests. The Lord of Nothingness wanted to reward his priests and believers. The Lord of Nothingness returned to the northern continent, which was of great significance. All priests touched by the black mist were directly upgraded by one level. Canute lay prone on the ground, watching the light around him disappear. He was completely swallowed by the black mist. In the black mist, the divine power in his body became more and more, until he became an 8th level priest without any obstacles. Success. He was promoted. He is the favorite of the Lord of Nothingness. He is the newly promoted 8th level cardinal priest of the Church of Nothingness. From now on, he will be responsible for half of the cardinal dioceses in the northern continent. Morales, who commands the fleet, is responsible for half, and he is responsible for half. I don't know how Morales is doing, but he has made a major breakthrough here. When the tentacle vortex appeared, all the priests who had just withdrawn from Belfort Port faced south and knelt down to pray excitedly. The Lord's gaze is the Lord's gaze. The only annihilation priest here, the 8th level cardinal annihilation priest Morales, was even more excited and trembling on the ground. The first temple of the Church of Annihilation has been built. The Lord of Nothingness has set his sights on the northern continent. Rudolph, who had just flown out of Belfort City, stood on the bow of the Starlight South ship and looked at the southern sky in disbelief. A black spot appeared at an unknown distance. He felt a palpitation in his heart. A bad premonition emerged in Rudolph's mind. The danger intuition of the word spirit reminded him that there was a very terrible danger in the south. The Starlight South ship continued to fly south, both to accommodate the characteristics of the northern constellation of Coma Berenices and to see what happened in the south. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 698. In Maha, the neighboring city to the north of Dani, everyone was in a panic because a group of refugees poured in that night. These refugees were not ordinary people, but the families of wealthy people in Dani in the south. After the incident, they took the only train as soon as possible. After arriving in Maha, they told everyone about the attack by the evil cult in Dani and looked for high-end hotels all over the city. When Rudolph flew to Maha, it was already late at night. He asked around and looked for people, and soon found a person who escaped from Dani. In a tavern, Rudolph met a young man. "My father is the director of the Dani City Road Administration. It's terrible. The evil god cult has more than a dozen ships and quickly captured the port." After hearing that there was a level 7 high priest among the enemies, my father quickly arranged for us to escape. The parliament closed the train station on the grounds of military control and only sent 2 trains before the train station was captured. Damn evil god priest. We transferred part of the property, but what about the fixed assets? The speaker is also damned. He actually asked all members of the parliament and members of various departments to fight to the last moment, otherwise he would not let the trains from the rich area leave. Why didn't the speaker die first? My father didn't escape, he didn't escape. On the train that left, I finally saw tentacles. More than a dozen tentacles spinning in the sky. Those tentacles even have eyes, so disgusting. The second-generation son of the director of the road administration said a lot of useless things. The only useful thing was the description of the tentacles. The evil gods have a god name and a real name. The real name represents their true body. For example, the true body of fraud is a snapping turtle with a pure and beautiful tongue, the true body of worm nest is a woman whose abdomen is connected to the abdomen of a spider, and the true body of Oblivion is a monster with 12 tentacles that eats carrion. The evil god Oblivion has already looked directly at Dani City. When the main force of the evil god cult attacked Belfort City 300 kilometers away, the Oblivion Church divided its troops to attack Dani City, and Dani City may be the more important target of the Oblivion Church. Rudolph walked out of the tavern and looked up in the direction of Dani City. This glance made his heart beat faster and his eyebrows hurt. The intuition of danger told him that he must not go in that direction, because there was a being that could easily kill him in that direction. What Rudolf had worried about countless times became a reality, and the evil god returned to the northern continent. After finding a map, Rudolf found the Bernike Sea on the map. The middle and lower part of this bay is Dani City, and the edge of the bay is more than 10 kilometers away from Dani City. Rudolf was ready to take the risk and try to see if he could complete the secret ceremony of the Northern Queen's seal. As for the investigation of Dani City, Rudolf had given up. This was not something he could do alone. He had to involve the West Elba Judgment Department. He thought of the Sacred Exorcism Agreement. Even this matter was not something that West Elba could deal with alone. This was something that all the bigwigs in the northern continent should consider. The establishment of each temple requires a cruel sacrifice, and many people will die in the sacrifice. The number of refugees pouring into Maha City is very small. They are either rich or noble. This is a group of wealthy families who are selling misery everywhere. They are much richer than most people in Maha City. And ordinary people in Dani City do not even have the qualifications to become refugees. Ordinary people who are unable to escape in the face of disasters will become sacrifices. Rudolf entered a state of absolute concealment, left Maha City, and headed southeast of Maha City, to the Bernike Sea northwest of Dani City. I don't know from what distance, Rudolf can already see the black ellipse above Dani City. What we see here is a flattened ellipse. There must be a terrible black vortex above Dani City. He tried his best to restrain his impulse to look directly at the black vortex, and lowered his head to hurry on his way. Fortunately, there was no priest on the road, no priest from Dani City. They were still consolidating the first temple. Unfortunately, there was no one on the road. Dani City became a black hole, and no one could escape from the black hole. After arriving at the seaside, Rudolf looked up and found Coma Berenices. The tail of Leo is Coma Berenices. Soon he found a reef. The constellation secret is so magical that Coma Berenices is not very conspicuous when standing on the seaside, but once standing on the reef, when he looked up again, he was suddenly attracted by Coma Berenices. Several bright stars formed Berenice's hair. Berenices was a queen in the mythological era, and her hair had magical powers. Rudolf took out the starstone and quickly drove the starstone powder to make the starstone powder look like the six-pointed star of Coma Berenices. He took out the main relic, the level 7 werewolf relic, the blue wolf hair. He had a lot of level 7 wolf hairs, and even a level 8 wolf hair. Among the level 7 wolf hairs, there were red wolf, yellow wolf, blue wolf, etc. He chose the blue wolf hair, which was the fastest. Putting the main relic, the level 7 blue wolf hair, in the ring in the middle of the hexagram, Rudolf took out two secondary relics. One was the level 7 insect nest relic, and the other was the level 7 abstinence priest relic. After placing the relics, Rudolf looked up in the direction of Coma Berenices. Coma Berenices was ready to move. It had been a long time since a wizard became a wizard of Coma Berenices. Coma Berenices had accumulated huge star power for countless years and hoped to have an outlet. Rudolf's star power connected the three relics, and the apostle power in the three relics dissipated, forming a special induction, which met the conditions for the landing of Coma Berenices' star power. The constellation Coma suddenly shone in the starry sky, emitting a fleeting dazzling light. In Dani City, the 8th level cardinal priest Canute suddenly turned his head and looked to the northwest. The vortex of nothingness guides us, and there are wizards completing secret rituals around. You too take people to see. Kill the madman who dared to be promoted around the Lord of Nothingness. The two previous 6th level priests were also promoted after the sacrifice and became 7th level priests. The two of them left here quickly. Canute prayed to the temple again intoxicatedly, and thought about how to build a huge auxiliary building complex around the temple so that the priests and believers who came to worship could feel the greatness of the Lord of Nothingness. The original fish market was too simple. Canute needed black marble, black granite, a large number of gems, and many precious materials. The two 7th-level annihilation priests obeyed the order of the cardinal priest, hurriedly selected people, and headed to the northwest. Xuan was lucky. He was chosen by the level 7 high priest to serve the Lord of Nothingness again. His eyes were full of expectation. He was promoted twice in the sacrifice, from a believer to a level 1 high priest. He wondered if he could be promoted again to become a level 2 high priest tonight. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 699. The power of the coma star suddenly fell and poured in from the top of Rudolph's head. His hair grew rapidly, and there was a rustling sound on the top of his head, and within a few seconds it was dragged to the ground. Rudolph suddenly discovered that he could control his hair and change his hairstyle at will. Coma can treat hair loss, which is good news for middle-aged men. After the star power entered Rudolph's head, it spread to every hair root, and then spread outward along the hair, causing Rudolph's long hair to fly up and sway slowly in the air. After swaying for a few seconds, the hair suddenly grew longer and stabbed at the 6-pointed star on the back of her hair. The main relic, the wolf hair, was the first to change. The wolf hair disintegrated, and the werewolf power inside couldn't wait to enter Rudolph's body, and finally poured into Rudolph's longer hair. Every strand of Rudolph's hair has turned into hair. The hair is as strong as steel wire, and the tips are as sharp as iron needles. It is no longer ordinary hair. That's not all. The second relic, the level 7 insect eggs, began to disintegrate. The insect nest can create endless evil insects. After the power of faith in the level 7 insect eggs entered Rudolph's hair suddenly expanded, and more, denser, and longer hair suddenly grew on his head. Hair. These wolf-like hairs spread irregularly farther away. The downward hair easily pierced the reef, and the left and right hair were several meters long. Rudolph lowered his head and found that the downward growing hair showed no sign of stopping. After the hair went downward, it spread and grew underground on the beach, forming a huge root system. Within a radius of 100 meters, the ground was calm, but the ground lines were already intertwined. Hair. These hairs slowly poked out from the ground, water, and rocks. 100 meters in diameter around Rudolph were swaying hairs, turning the surroundings into a black jungle. As the secret technique progresses, the third relic, the level 7 cold mask, begins to disintegrate. The power of faith in the level 7 cold mask entered Rudolph's hair, and Rudolph found that the hair moved much slower. It wasn't that the swing of his hair had really slowed down, but that Rudolph's 5 senses had become dulled. The core ability of the ascetic priest is to deprive the enemy of the 5 senses, causing the enemy to lose all desires and the ability to react. It is conceivable that when seeing these hairs, the reaction will become sluggish, the thinking speed will be extremely slow, and the low-level apostles will not be able to hide even if they want to. Rudolph completed the Uttarakhand Tantra, which accommodated the characteristics of coma. Deprived of the dull ability of the 5 senses, the entangled hair tentacles, the sharp stabs like wolf hairs, and the hair that stabs and sways from the ground like seaweed within a radius of 100 meters, these are the characteristics of coma. Rudolph's hair was broken from his shoulders, and the broken hair got into the rocks. On the rocks, in the shallow sea, and on the beach, there are hairs 1 or 2 meters high that emerge from the ground everywhere. These hairs sway slowly, and fish and shrimps are pierced by the dense hairs. There are wriggling black hairy tentacles everywhere, which makes people feel scalp numbness. Rudolph's hairstyle slowly returned to its original appearance. From then on, he could change his hairstyle at will without hairspray, making it as long as he wanted or as short as he wanted. In general, coma is more suitable for female wizards. Rudolph, a man who plays with his hair every day, is a bit girly. But there is no other way. Use whatever relics you have, complete any secret techniques, eat when you see food, do whatever work you see, the main thing is to be content with the situation and not pick it up. The hair on the beach and shallow sea slowly retracted. Rudolph removed the coma's star power and the hair disappeared. These are not ordinary hairs. It would be more accurate to call them back-haired wolf hairs. Back-haired wolf hairs have the attack power of wolf hairs, which is far beyond what ordinary hair can match. After accommodating a new northern sky feature, Rudolph prepared to leave quickly. The city of Dani was very dangerous. The black oval that once appeared in the sky proved that the sacrificial ceremony there had been completed. The evil god Annihilation will definitely focus on taking care of Dani city. This is his first temple in the northern continent and is very important. Just when Rudolph was about to leave, he found a group of priests coming from the south. Rudolph looked at the direction of Dani city. He wanted to know how far away from the temple it was safe, so he stood there and prepared to do an experiment. 2 level 7 priests were on their way. They first came to the beach, where Cardinal Priest Canute said the wizard's star power appeared. The beach was deserted now, just calm sea and beach. Xuan was sent to collect clues. He was very active and walked at the forefront of the priest's team. Suddenly there was a strange noise under his feet, making him look down. Did he crush a rock? Leaning over to pick up the broken pieces of the stone, Xuan discovered that there were densely packed pores on the stone. His weight could not break the stone at all, but the stone itself was riddled with holes. Throwing the stone away, Xuan saw that it shattered upon falling to the ground. Xuan quickly picked up other stones, each of which shattered with a single grip. He quickly and carefully grabbed a stone and ran towards the 7th level priest. "Dear High Priest, I found some strange stones, which were obviously made by the Apostle's power." The 7th level priest looked at the dense pores on the stone, and saw how easily Xuan crushed the stone into powder. What a strange ability! The 2 level 7 priests looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. What kind of wizard is stabbing stones nearby? If they had brought a level 6 wizard fanatic, they would have known which constellation's ability this was. Unfortunately, this time they were in a hurry and no wizard fanatic followed. Xuan looked at the puzzled expression of the level 7 high priest with pride, which proved that he had found good evidence. At this moment, Xuan's eyes suddenly became dazed. He immediately understood why these stones became like this. The ground suddenly turned black, and if you look closely, it was densely packed hair. The ground suddenly turned into a blanket, and the hair drilled out from the ground. With Xuan's strength, he couldn't react at all, and was pierced by countless hair. These hairs, which were as strong as the wolf hair of a level 7 werewolf, pierced Xuan's feet, legs, knees, hips, chest, abdomen, arms, throat, etc., leaving only his head exposed. At least hundreds of hairs, in a cone shape from different angles, pierced Xuan's body from different heights. Xuan saw the enemy. A black-haired young man suddenly appeared behind the 2 level 7 high priests. Not only was Xuan stabbed to death, but before he died, he saw a level 7 Oblivion high priest also stabbed to death. Another level 7 high priest escaped by chance, or rather, the wizard did not attack him. Everything after that had nothing to do with Xuan. He was going to die. Before he died, he moved his fingers, trying to pull the hair, but the hair was covered with blood from his palms, so he couldn't grab it at all. Before he died, he remembered the middle-aged woman he had dragged to sacrifice. The middle-aged woman had introduced him to a job and asked him if he was adapting to restaurant life. Her hair was pulled out by the roots during the dragging process, and a lot of blood flowed from her scalp, just like Xuan's own blood stuck to his hair now, so slippery and greasy. The hair all over the ground suddenly shrank and left Xuan's body, and hundreds of pores appeared on his body, spurting out thin blood. His body fell heavily to the back, and he hated it so much. If he could drag a few more sacrifices to the temple, would he not be killed so easily? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 700. In the thick seaweed-like Haufa forest, except for a level 7 annihilation priest, all the other priests were stabbed to death by Haufa wolf hair. When dealing with the same level and low-level apostles, Koma's ability will cause the enemy to become sluggish due to the ability of the ascetic priest. He didn't react much to the level 7 annihilation priest who had just been stabbed to death. Another level 7 annihilation priest, Rudolph deliberately did not kill. The man was startled and quickly fought back. Before the swirling black hole could touch him, Rudolph disappeared again, entering absolute anonymity. Absolute concealment is very useful, but unfortunately it will break out of concealment at the moment of attack. The surviving annihilation priest was horrified to find that the enemy disappeared after launching an attack. No matter how hard he searched, he could not find the enemy. As the enemy disappeared, the surrounding sharp black hair also disappeared. There were dull thumping sounds all around, which was the sound of a corpse falling to the ground after losing its support. The level 7 annihilation priest suddenly turned his head and looked around, but could only hear the roar of the sea wind. The elusive enemy and terrifying attack methods made the level 7 Oblivion priest very puzzled. He had obviously been promoted, so how could he be attacked by others? He looked back in the direction of Dani City and became very panicked. The temple's range of influence has a limit, which is called the Faith Radiation Range. This place is too far from the temple and has fallen out of the Faith Radiation Range of the Dani City Temple. Just when he was trying to find the enemy, he suddenly heard a sound explosion, and a level 7 vampire suddenly appeared in front of him. The reason why I recognized this vampire as a level 7 vampire was because there was a thick blood mist surrounding this vampire. Once you enter the blood mist of level 7 vampires, you will never survive. The blood mist itself has the ability to draw out the blood of intruders, and level 7 vampires can flash freely in the blood mist. The pride of the level 7 annihilation priest was instantly shattered. The enemies were 2 level 7 apostles, each with weirder abilities than the other. He casually threw a black hole vortex to block the level 7 vampires, then turned around and ran away. Vanya was responsible for chasing the level 7 annihilation priest. Rudolph appeared again and picked up the relics left by the level 7 annihilation priest on the ground. This is a pipe. This annihilation priest likes to hold a pipe in his mouth. The pipe is his weapon and can be used to release the black hole vortex. The level 7 Oblivion pipe disappeared into Rudolph's hand, turned into a shooting star in the star map, and flew towards the star Zeta Virgo. The progress of Virgo reached 6/11. 3 suspended stars fell from the Zeta Virgo star. This was Rudolph's reward. Level 7 Black Hole Pipe, Level 7 Swallowing Smoke, Level 7 Northern Triangle Secret Style. The Black Hole Pipe is a witchcraft, and Rudolph has no use for it. Swallowing the smoke should be some kind of witchcraft similar to the magic of annihilation, and Rudolph has no choice. He chose the third option, the Triangulum Secret. Northern Triangular Secret. Astrology Chart, Triangular Hexagram. Main Relic, Level 7 Plague Relic. Sub-Relics, Level 7 Trapped Priest Relics, Level 7 Annihilated Priest Relics. Ceremony Location, Triangulum Direct Area, Salai Island. Rudolph had a headache when he saw this formula. The main relic turned out to be a Level 7 Plague Vector Relic. Where could he find a Level 7 Plague Vector? I haven't heard of any widespread infectious diseases in the northern continent recently. How big of an infectious disease does a Level 7 Plague Vector have to create to be promoted? Plague Vector relics can weaken people, Trapped Priest relics can trap enemies, Annihilation relics can prevent enemies from escaping, and the Triangulum Wizard should have some ability to restrain enemies. The secondary relic is okay, but the main relic is too rare. Forget it, just enrich your secret library. The previous attack on the priest was too harsh. The dozen or so relics on the ground were all obtained by Rudolph before and failed to light up the star map. Rudolph entered absolute concealment and followed Vanya, who was still driving away the level 7 Annihilation Priest. Soon Rudolph caught up with Vanya, and the level 7 Annihilation Priest was struggling to deal with Vanya's castle bat. After killing the castle bat will turn into a cloud of blood mist. This blood mist cannot be touched. Once it is touched, a large area of redness and swelling will appear on the skin, and its own blood will seep out from the skin. Becomes blood droplets on the skin. After the blood mist reaches a certain concentration, level 7 vampires can also flash out of the blood mist, which is very difficult to deal with. Rudolph was not in a hurry to kill this level 7 Annihilation Priest. He wanted to know how far away from the temple the priest could draw on the power of the temple, that is, what the scope of influence of the temple was. In order to put pressure on the Annihilation Priest, Rudolph would occasionally appear and fire a few shots at the Annihilation Priest. Priest Annihilation was shot in the shoulder. He could no longer resist and turned around to run for his life. The castle bats were harassing him behind him, and the gunshots sent level 7 poison-quenching bullets. The poison coursed through the priest's body, making Priest Annihilation's eyes almost pop out. He had to run faster, and just run a little longer to enter the temple's faith radiation. A few minutes later, after feeling the strong power of faith, the level 7 Annihilation Priest suddenly stopped running away. He turned around and looked at the level 7 vampire who had been chasing him, his face full of ferocity. Blasphemer! If I can't die, you will die. This place is already within the faith radiation range of the temple, and you are already a dead person. Vampire! The power of faith that did not belong to the 7th level priest gathered on him, and the Annihilation Priest suddenly used a swallowing vortex with a wide range, wrapping Vanya 100 meters away. The suddenly stronger attack power of the level 7 priest made Rudolph look sideways. The temple was really a troublesome thing. The strengthening of the priest near the temple was a headache. Before Vanya died, his whole body collapsed and turned into star power and disappeared. Rudolph, who was hiding, was in the sky and roughly determined that this place was 20 kilometers away from Dani City. In other words, as the Annihilation Priest just mentioned, the faith radiation range of the temple is 20 kilometers. After learning this news, Rudolph turned around and left without entangled with the level 7 Annihilation Priest. Rudolph returned to Maha City and walked directly to the trial office in the city center. The people here were in panic. Dani City was occupied by the evil god cult. It was so sudden and so unexpected that they did not realize what it meant. After entering the trial office, the director of the trial office hurried to the reception room and saw the great wizard, the furnace. Director, use your internal communication means to ask Director Duke and Colonel Adiya to come to Maha City immediately. Director Duke knows who Colonel Adiya is and what I mean. Rudolph asked Adiya to come as well, asking the last level 8 giant air blast bomb to come to Maha City. The naval battle in Belfour was just a disguise. The real target of the evil god cult was Dani City. They wanted to build the first temple in Dani City and let the evil god keep an eye on Dani City. Watching the director leave in a hurry, Rudolph stood by the window and looked at the sky in the south. The sky there seemed to be a little dim. The situation was getting worse. Rudolph's biggest worry had come true. When the first temple was built, it was too late. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 701. At noon the next day, Rudolph met Minister Duke and Colonel Aditya who hurriedly arrived. In addition to these two people, there was also Brigadier Brooke of the Constitutional Army. Division Commander Rubio wanted to defend Belfour City, so he sent Brooke with a brigade of troops. One brigade is not enough, far from enough. Facing the serious-faced Furnace, Brooke quickly explained, Mr. Furnace, it's not that we are unwilling to send more troops, but the navy of the evil god has come back and is swimming on the sea outside Belfour port, ready to attack Belfort at any time. Fu City. I know, but a temple has appeared here. The temple is much stronger than the navy of the evil religion. This is the top priority. Seeing Brooks' hesitant look, Rudolph said, it's because you are here in Belfort City. With a lot of wealth, do the MPS think that the capital city of Balfour should be the main focus? Brooke did not answer, acquiescing to the furnace's statement. Rudolph sighed in his heart. When he wanted to do something, he always felt like there was resistance everywhere. Those who are drowning will hesitate to miss the opportunity to escape because they do not want to get their hair wet. Mr. Furnace, we have sent a distress letter to the regional council. I think the regional council will send enough support soon. Rudolph shook his head. Garon City, the capital of your region, cannot protect itself from the wolf tide. Last time I passed by Garon City, half of Garon City was destroyed by the wolf tide. I don't think Garon region can give you eagles. How much support does the Mouth Peninsula have? Brooke and Duke looked at each other. The furnace passed through the entire Garon region. He had an intuitive feeling about the situation in the Garon region. If what the furnace said was true, the secret passage to the Eagle Beak Peninsula really had to rely on his own. Have some strength to fight against the entire southern continent? Against the entire evil cult. At this time, Aditya also spoke, telling Rudolph an even worse situation. Mr. Furnace, Provincial Speaker Hart asked me that unless I ensure that this level 8 giant air blast bomb can destroy the temple of the evil cult, otherwise this bomb the air burst bomb must be kept for Belfort City. I brought this air burst bomb according to your request, but I must get your promise that this giant air burst bomb must be used on the temple in Danny City. Rudolph recalled his previous memories. Just standing on the edge of the temple's faith radiation would give him a feeling of palpitations. He felt that if he rashly went deep into the temple, he would wake up the evil god Annihilation, and Annihilation would look directly at him and kill him directly. As the suffering master of the evil god cult, the evil god cult hated Rudolph so much, very much. Rudolph still had this confidence, and he was worthy of the evil god's attention. He did not dare to use absolute concealment to approach the temple. He did a divination last night. If he approached the temple, there was more than 95% chance that he would die in front of the temple. I'm not hiding anything. I don't dare to go near the temple. The temple represents the ability to surpass the level 9 apostle. It's not something I, a level 7 wizard, can get close to. It's impossible for me to bomb the temple with this giant level 8 air blast bomb. Then it's death, said Rudolph. If you can get more than 10 giant air burst bombs, I can consider using high altitude bombs to try to deal with the temple. If there are enough level 8 alchemical air burst bombs, you can use fierce firepower to withstand the evil god's gaze and clean up the temple. The surrounding priests have reduced the power of faith in the temple, making it unable to withstand the evil god's power. Only one level 8 giant air burst bomb can defeat the temple, which is far from enough. Hearing this plan, the other alchemists smiled bitterly. In theory, it should be done this way, but the problem is that 11 Elba does not have such abundant resources to allow them to achieve such a wonderful suppression ability. Seeing the looks on the other people's faces, Rudolph knew that his idea was destined to be a fantasy. Brooke said, if the troops on the Eastern Front don't have to deal with the Knights and are transferred to the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, maybe we can implement the style of play you mentioned. Speaking of Knights, Rudolph asked, Director Duke, the evil god has landed in the northern continent. Didn't Prime Minister House say last time that there was a holy exorcism agreement in the northern continent? Now that the evil god has really come, what is the attitude of other forces? Do the Knights still want to deal with you? Are the werewolves within the scope of this agreement? Duke said, we have reported the news, and it is estimated that the House of Lords will inform the surrounding forces of the news, especially sending people to the Mogwen Empire to ask Emperor Mogwen to go south to support us. However, the transmission of the news requires a process. It will be a few months later when Emperor Mogwen's royal knights go south. A few months. A few months later, the victory or defeat of the evil god cult and the knights will no longer matter to the people of the Eagle Beak Peninsula. It has long since become a sacrifice. Duke said, "Now I just hope that the Kingdom of East Elba can stop being aggressive for the sake of the Holy Exorcism Agreement, sign a peace agreement with us, and then jointly fight against the evil cult." Who knows what Carloman 16 was thinking? Just when the few people couldn't come up with anything, they received another bad news in the afternoon. The director of the trial found Duke and reported to Duke, "Director, there are many groups of priests in the direction of Dani City, and they are robbing people everywhere. Many people in the suburban farms have been kidnapped by the priests." Duke asked him, "Do you know what the priests do to arrest people?" The director's face showed embarrassment. How did he know this? This was beyond his capabilities. Duke also knew that nothing could be gained by asking, so he looked at Rudolph beside him. Rudolph said, "Let's go and have a look. I guess the evil god cult is going to continue to build the temple. The construction of each temple requires a sacrificial ceremony and sacrifices. Those ordinary people are their sacrifices, and they can use their lives to provide the evil god with the power of faith." Others hoped that what the furnace said was false, but only this explanation could explain why the evil god cult did this. Several people quickly left Maha City and headed towards Dani City. Rudolph did not meet any farmers who were fleeing. Logically, other farmers would run for their lives after a farm was attacked. The further forward you go, the less people there are. I didn't expect the evil god cult to act so quickly. They actually sent out so many priests in one day, leaving the farmers here with no chance to escape. When they came to a certain location, Rudolph suddenly said, "Don't go. If you go any further, you will enter the faith radiation range of the temple. That is the home of the priests. It's ironic that a certain area in the northern continent has become the home of the priests." After searching along the radiation range, Rudolph saw a construction site. Right at the edge of the radiation range of the temple's faith, the priests were building a second temple.